So in the spirit of staff development. I'm joking. No, Leslie is out and tested positive for COVID and is pretty sick today. Enough that she didn't feel confident even coming on virtually. And luckily Dylan was willing. And so we're hoping you'll be easy on us today as Dylan, myself, and Diane make up for what is in Leslie's brain right now.
I want to thank you all for being here today. For the time you're putting into this, and as well as that you've all done getting this to this point ready. I will try to take notes or any proposed changes you guys might have today, or look to any information we need to get back to you guys. With that, you can go ahead and jump in. The objective of the meeting, we're going to go over some upcoming dates with you guys, view our strategic plans that we discussed this summer at the work session. We're looking at the proposed 2024 budgets for all the funds, as well as the ending fund balances and changes in any of those funds, as well as the required reserves. Over the revenue assumptions we have as a town, as well as giving you any budget highlights in the 2024 budget that have changed from 2023. And then towards the end, you have some discussion points that you guys can all discuss amongst each other. I apologize beforehand for my unpreparedness and my nervousness, but I think we should get through this without any problems.
You get Dylan, it's nothing we haven't all seen before, so that's
some important dates. After today's session, we will take any notes or changes you might make and come back to you with our proposed budget that's going to be published online, as well as the account packets. Wednesday, October 4th. We do have the first reading of the 2024 budget, October 10th. That is a public hearing with public comment. Any changes we make or at that time will be revised and republished on October 18th. And that second reading is October 24th. That is corresponding with our mill levy certification on the same day. Getting into our strategic plan that you guys all went over this summer, these are what is within our 2024 budget that fall within our 2024 strategic plans. The highlights are why are just enough? Oh, right there. Went too quickly. Quality core services. We are going to look into reconstruction of the old town hall. There's housing services. Oh. I went too bad. I apologize. Number one is our climate action plan. If you guys have any questions about any of these strategic plan projects, please direct them to Tom. He is well more versed than them. But improving our quality core services, we do have the climate action plan. Level 7 PFAS, those are the forever chemical mitigation we're going to complete in 2024. The pay as you grow program or universal recycling. The Summit Boulevard sidewalk project we're going to remodel. There's a comprehensive plan. We are looking into increasing employee rental units as well as purchasing some electric vehicles for our fleet. That's part of our quality core services to move away from gas powered vehicles. Those fleet purchases can take up to 18 months for delivery after we buy them. So it's important we get them on the budget as soon as we can for delivery as soon as we can. There's a complete streets 100% design of the Granite Street. We have a goal of 90% staffing. We want to be the employer of choice amongst governments in Summit County. To be that, we need to take a look at our compensation for all employees to make sure that is competitive throughout the county. The culture of Frisco itself that adds to a lot of just employee recognition, how employees feel coming into work. We want the culture here to be welcoming and inclusive. And we try to keep all of our equipment within public works, as well as all administration, to have our equipment up to date, running top of the notch computers to where we can do our jobs efficiently and employees aren't getting struck out because we are lacking in any equipment that we need to do this with. We're going to continue our asset management plan. Addison will discuss that a little later on in this presentation, including the town hall master plan, building management, street management, and vehicle equipment investments. Our next strategic priority is the thriving economy. For this, we do have the Old Town Hall recapitalization and construction. We do need housing services. There's going to be a study performed in 2024 to support workforce housing development in the town. We're going to improve the solar light replacements in the town. There are bridge improvements. Our fiber infrastructure, we will be laying new fiber. We're keeping that in line with our Complete Streets program with the philosophy of only digging once. So we lay the fiber when we are working on the street itself. Water infrastructure inventory and the summer kickoff 4th of July concert. We started this year, but that will be budgeted next year as well. The next strategic priority of the town is the community inclusivity. Again, town hall master plan is involved with that. Our arts and culture programming, community gardens, compensation study, again, trying to keep Frisco the employer of choice. We have a countywide child care tuition assistance program that we're kicking off in 2024. There's nonprofit grant funding. We're continuing to fund housing helps and trying to get more workforce housing within the town and affordable for people with our buy down programs. And we do have a new home improvement loan program for residences to where they could improve upon their house with a loan down that they can't afford it. The final one is our arts, culture, and recreation priority. Again, with this, we have the Historic Park and Museum 5-year strategic plan we're looking into in 2024. We need to replace the sand down at the Marina Park. That was put in when we did the big dig about 5 years ago. I think going forward, that's on the budget for new sand to come in there every few years when needed, as it gets washed out. We do have an Arts and Culture Council plan implementation, a neighborhood parks plan, PRA master plan that includes construction of a new slopeside hall and trail enhancements out of the PRA that will continue to just improve the biking and the whole PRA out there itself. So with that, those strategic plans really guide our entire budget process, and we try to make our budgeting in accordance with all of these plans. So we can jump into some numbers after this. So with this slide, we're looking at our 2023 versus 2024 budgets. This, I should let you all know, does not include transfers. Because if we did include those transfers, they would be doubling up the revenues per se. If you look at the capital fund, for instance, you can see the 2023 expenses much higher than 2023 revenues. But there is a huge transfer from the general fund into the capital fund every year. That's not shown in this graph because it would then again be doubling up on the revenues. You can see in the general fund, that red line on the left, the 2023 revenues compared to the 2023 expenses to the right of it in orange. That difference is largely what is transferred into the capital improvement fund. 2023 capital expenses are really high from delayed projects of the COVID years and all the new exciting stuff we're doing as a town this year. 619 Granite, a lot of other capital improvements, bridges, parks, all throughout the town. Actually, that 619 Granite is in the housing fund. You can see the housing fund is a little higher than the revenues. That's part of the housing helps program and the buy downs that year. 2023 revenues are primarily from our COPs we issued for 619 Granite, the grants we received, and the partnership monies we've received for that from the county. Those revenues and expenses are very high in the housing fund in 2023. You can see that that is not budgeted in 2024 because hopefully we don't need to do any more COPs out of there. The water fund, you can see in 2024 revenues are high. We would probably
Can I just double check?
Yep.
For Granite, we're booking all the loan proceeds and the expenses for the entire project in 2023, even though
they could
2024 is obviously going to have a lot of
Yes.
construction expenses.
This is just based off of projections, and if we do spend all of that money in the year that we're supposed to, a lot of it is going to transfer over.
If they build the budget, we will have no additional expenses in 2024. If we need to go, if it goes over budget, then it will be a new expense.
Yes.
Great.
You can see the Marina Fund.
So I'll get only asked easy.
The Marina Fund, you can see that in 2023, expenses were slightly higher. We made a conscious effort to bring those expenses down in 2024 and the revenues up, which we have done. That fund is slowly coming back into the positive, and in the future, we feel that it's going to be in the green and without any problems. The other funds we have are the nicotine fund, the space fund, historical preservation fund, and getting one of our insurance reserve. And those are pretty much staying stable from revenues and expenses going into 2020.
Dylan, can you remind, what's that spike in the projected revenue for the water fund?
I believe it is grant related.
Okay.
I am not 100%
Is that for
sure.
the well said? And
Diane does confirm on that. Good guess there. Going next, we're looking at our proposed budget, our ending fund balance. You can see the 2023 general fund projected ending fund balance is slightly higher than in 2024. Those excess funds do get transferred to the capital. 2024 budget is in line with our council's set reserve of 7-month expenditures. For that, at the end of 2023, we are projected to have in excess of the 7-month reserve of $1.7 million. So that's just extra cash we have on hand that you guys can spend if you'd like, or keep it in our bank. The capital fund 2023 projected is projected to be spent down with all of our projects. That does increase in 2024 from the transfers we intend to transfer from the general fund to the capital fund. That projected ending balance in 2023, $248,000 cash. The housing fund is projected to end 2023 with just under $4.8 million in cash. That is specifically dedicated to housing and any future projects, buy down programs, and the housing groups, 2024. Revenues continue to come in a little higher than we project to spend in 2024. So the housing funds ending fund balance is slightly higher than 2023. The water fund has a 4-month reserve. You can see in yellow for expenses that council requires us to keep in reserve. And the 2023 ending balance is right around $6 million and not fluctuating much, slightly increasing in 2024. We are going to increase our water user fees according to the water plan we did a few years ago. The Marina Fund has a 4-month required reserve as well. You can see that in yellow. However, we are currently not meeting that. At the end of 2023, that fund is projected to have a negative $90,000 balance. Thankfully, in 2024, revenues are budgeted higher than expenses, and we are getting that fund back up to meet the requirement reserves you guys have set up on this. The other funds, they have a high fund balance in 2023, and a lot of that is going to be spent out of the nicotine fund next year, lowering all of those other funds. The lodging tax fund is transferring some money as well to capital improvements for the Vic bathroom remodel. So that's why those fund balances are decreasing, but they're still very strong across the. So jumping into our revenue forecast, 2024. We have used what we feel is the most renowned and well most understood and just really well done on the Colorado University of Colorado Leeds School of Business puts out an economic forecast each year that we kind of base our projections off of. Ours are a little more conservative than the Leeds School of Business, just because our philosophy in Frisco is to under budget our revenues and over budget our expenditures. So at the end of the year, we always have little extra cash underneath our Frisco Christmas tree. The inflation for 2024 is expected to come in at 3.1%, and sales tax growth is expected to come in at 2.3%. The difference between that is just inflation related expenses that don't correlate into sales tax, such as housing, increases in housing purchases. Excuse me. You can see our 2023 projected revenues compared to our 2024 projected revenues. Again, these are just revenues, not including transfers. The capital fund will have much higher revenue after that general fund transfer, but again, we don't show that in this graph because we don't want to double up on revenues. The housing fund 2023, that is primarily due again to all of the funding we received for 619 Granite. We're not going to receive that again in 2024. Water fund revenues are increasing in 2024 due to grants we're getting for the new wells. The marina fund revenues are slightly higher in 2024 than 2023. We did do a look at all of our fees out of the marina and adjusted them accordingly where we thought we could maybe make some more money. The other funds, revenue forecast, lodging tax, again, we budget conservatively. We are actually budgeting that in line with what we did budget in 2023, lodging tax revenues. Those revenues are coming in higher than expected, but didn't want to shoot ourselves in the foot and overestimate any revenue. Again, these are all very conservative revenue estimates, but you can see the revenues we have forecasted for 2024 compared to 2020. Our next slide is our revenue by source. You can see where the town makes all of our money. Primarily 90%. I'm not sure it's 90%, but a lot of our money comes in the form of taxes. Licensing and permits, we are looked at all of those across the board, and we are proposing some higher fees in 2024 compared to 2023. Intergovernmental revenues are coming in pretty even. Those are grants we're expected to receive, as well as motor vehicle registration fees and deference taxes that don't change much, you know. Charges of service we looked at across the board: the marina, the water fund, community development, even business licensing. Well, that's licensing permits, but charges for services are coming in slightly higher in 2024 than 2023. Not much of a change though. And the other investment income, that is budgeted lower in 2024 than 2023, just because we will be spending down a lot of fund balance. And I did make these projections, I was expecting inflation to be coming down. Interest rates to come down with it. They seem to have not come down as far as I projected. So I would expect that 2024 actual to come in higher than budgeted for our investments as well. But again, we take a conservative approach and hope for the best. Lottery proceeds is minimum and other revenues is minimum as well.
And real estate revenue, real estate tax revenue is even minimum to minimum. Like it doesn't even make the chart.
Didn't even make the
Yeah,
whole list.
I
I think
will.
that cut off.
Oh, down there at the bottom, you can see, in 2024, we are projected to take in $299,000 in real estate taxes. That is actually $94,000 higher than we took in 2023. That's based off of your best values. But it is very, very minimum in the bank list. These are our 2024 grant opportunities we're looking into for any projects we hope to that we did budget for. However, if we do not get these grant project is then put on hold. And we can reassess it at the time to have money to fund it. But a few of these projects are based off of grant dollars. And if we don't get the grant dollars, project will be placed on hold. But we budgeted the revenues as well as to match the expenses. So all of these revenues, $7.1 million is what we're hoping to take in and fund all of these projects. If you want, I can read through them or give you guys a minute to look over them. And if you're ready, I can move to the next slide. Looking into our debt obligations for 2024, we have a little over $1.25 million budgeted for expenses. Though as of January 1st, 2024, you can see we have $13.6 million in total debt. You can look on the right of this and see when that debt is going to mature. And you can look at the payments that are due in 2024 and the interest rate on all of that debt. We have our First and Main, which should be paid off in 2031. You guys have discussed in the past paying that off sooner. That's still up for discussion. We have the money. PRA improvements, that's going to be paid down in 2030. Granite Park that we just took money out on this year, that's going to be paid down in 2033. And our marina revenue bonds are paid off T48. Our next slide is a big pie chart of our governmental funds and what we are going to spend out of each of them in 2024. You can see that Conservation Trust Fund, Open Space Fund, and Historic Preservation Fund do not have any expenses budgeted. Very minimum fund balances anyway, so till those drastically increase, those will probably remain pretty low. You can see that the majority of this governmental funds pie chart consists of governmental capital fund spending. That's where council has the most discretion to dictate how we spend that money and what we spend it on. Other special revenue funds the special funds are, they have a dedicated funding source to them. And a lot of their expenses are not able to. I should say there's no transfers made out of those funds. They have a dedicated revenue source for a specific expenditure. Council doesn't have a lot of leeway on those funds.
Is there, probably not a conversation for tonight, but is there a reason, I don't even know, how do you lay down a fund that has no spending and barely any revenue so that we can eliminate them from the chart? Like, should we be putting on our topics to lay down the Conservation Trust Fund, the Open Space Fund, the Historic Preservation Fund, because they're really relevant to our budget processing?
The Historic Preservation Fund, I know, was a donation from an old council member for the historic preservation of our museum, but that fund has $1,000. And till council decides what they want to spend that money on out of the museum, it will continue to have $1,000 and make $3 of interest a year.
And burden you guys with another column.
It's no burden, but it will remain sitting there. The Open Space Fund and Conservation Trust Fund was funded by lottery proceeds. That does have a transfer actually in 2024 to the Capital Improvement 5-year program fund. I think that's supposed to be spent on like our skate park and disc golf park. So those funds do get transferred out slightly, but we will always continue on that dedicated revenue source, specifically from the state on lottery proceeds that can only be spent on certain aspects. So I don't think we can get rid of these funds. They're just there until they are spent down. But nothing is budgeted in 2024, so they had no part of the pie.
So your biggest opportunity is the $1,003.
Propose we do something, throw that money into something, the fund.
I'm sure Rose could get something.
Right, so now getting into the specifics of each fund. First, we have our general fund. You can look at the trends both in revenues and expenditures year over year. Our 2022 revenue and expenditures have already been audited, and those are final. Our 2023s are just based off of that projections at this point, and our 2024 is our proposed budget for next year. The big differences from 2023 expenses to 2024 expenses, that roughly $3.8 million increase is a lot of the repair and maintenance that used to sit in the capital improvement fund that really wasn't. It was repair and maintenance. So we moved that from the capital fund to the general fund. Just makes more sense. We put in our bridge reconstructions, our road resurfacing in there. That makes up a lot of it. And that's just day-to-day expenditures, that are really not capital. So that's why that increase from 2023 to 2024 is such a big jump. You can see that revenues are steadily increasing each year. They will continue to increase, hopefully. And revenues are always coming in a little bit higher than expenditures, which is a great thing. That difference does get transferred to the capital fund every year. That's what makes up a lot of that fund balance that we spend for necessary project. Our general fund budget highlights for 2024. These are just big changes we want to point out compared to our 2023 budget. You can see that we're taking in $299,000 in property tax. That's $94,000 higher than 2023. Trying to maintain competitive in the market. We have up to a 5% merit increase for all staff. Not everyone gets a 5% merit increase, but we just budgeted in case everyone were to. That along with a additional allowance for wage inflation based off of that compensation study we're gonna do in 2024. There's another 2% in wage inflation that is within that 569,000 employee compensation. Again, probably it's budgeted at 569, but it will not come in at 569 based on employee reviews. We have a $35,000 compensation study, which I mentioned already. A $64,500 seasonal housing program for town staff. We have a new position as a streets operator for $65,000. An additional building inspector in community development for $40,000. What jumped out at me this year was this $220,000 increase in our dispatch services compared to our intergovernmental agreement. That's the 911 center. They're remodeling or improving next year. So we contribute to that. So that's why there's that big jump in that line item there. There's $690,000 budgeted for big bridge infrastructure and repair. $200,000 to a comprehensive plan, $50,000 for a climate action plan, $34,000 funding to the High Country Conservation Center, and $47,000 additional funding to technical purchases for updating our phone systems. Next, we look at our capital improvement fund year over year. Again, these revenues are only what we plan to take in with our real estate investment fees and other capital revenues. The transfer is not shown here because we don't want to double up on the expenditures, but big gap difference between those is what that transfer is. And spending fund balance down in 2023 with all of our capital projects going on right now. 2024, we do have higher expenditures than budget, but that should be made up as well with the transfer coming in from the general fund. Next is our insurance reserve fund. This is the only fund I included the transfers with. This fund was set up this year so we could better track our expenses for insurances. We do have a reserve in this account set up by council. I think it's 6 months of the insurance expenditures we want to hold in this fund. This always just sat in the general fund and those reserves weren't really acknowledged. So 2023, we took transfers in from general fund, the housing fund. We have one employee in the housing fund. Water fund and the marina fund all contributed to this insurance reserve to where we now have our 6 months reserve, and we can track our fixed costs as well as any fluctuations in premiums we might have. So again, I did include transfers into this fund because that's how this fund gets funded. Without it, it would be zero revenues and high expenses. So in order just to show that the fund is maintaining itself, I showed those transfers. Next, our special revenue funds, which that are part of our government-wide funds. These are showing our 2024 expenses for each fund as a whole in a pie chart. Lodging tax fund, we're spending 1.095 million next year. Conservation trust fund, open space fund, historical fund, again, are zero. Our housing fund, that $2.6 million is mainly buy down programs, the housing helps, as well as any additional housing costs we have. Nicotine fund, we're expected to spend $796,000 next year, and we can look into these funds in a little more detail. First is the housing fund. Again, the 2022 numbers have been audited. The 2023 are our projections, and the 2024 are what we're proposing to you guys. You can see the big jump in 2023, both in revenue and expenses. Those correlate to 619 Granite. And the expenses are much higher because we had $4 million in housing helps this year. We purchased, I believe, 4 different housing units already this year. Next year, we're 2024 revenues are coming in at $3 million, and we only expect to spend 2.6. So this fund balance should increase some.
Sorry, why are the revenues so different?
This $9.3 million is the COP, $7 million we issued this year,
And
as
the
well as
revenue from CDOT.
Oh,
our partnerships from the county and the grants we've taken in for that project. Lodging tax fund. We do have a slight increase in 2024 compared to our revenues that we are budgeting to take in. We do take a conservative approach to revenues, and overly, I'd say we budget our expenses a little higher, just so we do have that additional fund balance at the end of the year to lean back on. There is also a transfer from the lodging tax fund that is not shown on this in 2024 to the capital improvement fund for the Dick bathroom improvements. You can see in 2023 revenues are coming in at $968,000 compared to $959,000 in 2023. Difference there is interest that I budgeted below coming in, although interest is coming in higher, so that should be a little bit better. And we budgeted our lodging tax revenue flat compared to 2023, and 2023 is coming in higher than budgeted. So that's why we have the 968 compared to the 950. I'd imagine next year when we're looking at projected 2024, it's going to be higher than the 968 in 2023. Next is our nicotine tax fund. This was set up for public health purposes. There's two different phases to this fund, actually. There's one is the nicotine work group that we fund the county for. That's for cessation of nicotine products. And the second part of that is our community nonprofits, Building Hope Community Care Clinic, and the Burke Fund. The county takes this money in and transfers it back to us through our IGA fund. You can see that 2022 revenues are higher than 2023 expenditures. However, with the child care assistance we set up in 2024, you can start to see that our expenditures are going to outpace our revenues. So council will have to review this at some point to figure out how to balance that out a little bit better. The next slide kind of shows the revenue projections as well as our expenditures and the ending fund balance for this fund. We continue with the child care assistance. This fund is going to be spent down quickly, and by 2030, it will be underfunded. So again, just long term, look into this. We need to figure out how we're spending this money. Our other funds, Conservation Trust, Historic Preservation, and Open Space Fund. We did not include grass because they haven't had any expenditure this year or next. We left those. Enterprise funds are our two proprietary funds that operate as their own businesses. They're not funded by tax dollars or government. They're funded only by user fees. So that is our water fund and marina fund. Looking at our water fund, revenues are increasing year over year due to our long-term water master plan where user fees are increasing year over year. Expenditures have remained pretty steady. In 2024, we are predicted to do some PFAS mitigation and some well refurbishments. That's why you see that huge jump in revenues for 2024 compared to previous years.
Is it normal, like this PFAS thing is an anomaly? You know, it's an expense that's coming, it's only gonna happen if there's a grant. It's only gonna happen, no? If we don't get a grant for $4.5 million.
We still have to do the project. And we'll have to pay for it out of the water fund.
I just feel like forever, at least the next number of annual cycles, there will be the question of what happened in that odd year. So I didn't know if it's an extraordinary expense that's not normal operation expense of our water fund. I don't know. Does it get an asterisk next to it to always be noted that that's not a normal part of our water fund? It's an extraordinary expense.
It is separated out on the budget document. You can see that it is primarily grant funding and it's it is an outlier. It's not gonna be budgeted every year. But
So-
it's,
If we don't get the grant,
we still have that $2.4 million expenses that we will be spending.
and where does that come from, or
The
that's?
water fund, if you look back at our fund balances, it has
Got it in there.
a $6 million fund balance, which is well above its 4-month reserve. So
But-
our fund is healthy and will be able.
But even within that fund balance, those fund balances have purpose because the fees are collected for a purpose in the future to recapitalize the system. So a future rate study take into account that we had to fund PFAS mitigation, which means fees would go up to compensate for that.
Our other enterprise fund is our marina fund. You can see 2022 as well as 2023 revenues are coming in below expenditures. Just a lot going on at the marina, a lot of projects to get everything up to date, pretty out there, all the capital projects that we've done. We've spent fund balance down. Staff knows that we need to turn that around and start collecting more revenues than expenditures to increase that fund balance and get us back up to that 4-month reserve. Long term, the good thing going forward is that in 2024, revenues are expected to come in higher than expenditures, so that trend should continue and the marina fund be beautiful, up and running and making money. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to Addison to discuss our capital improvement plans. If you guys have any questions on this part of the budget, I am happy to answer them for you, or defer them to someone who can. And after Addison is done with his presentation, I will get back on and we have a few discussion points of 2024 expenditures that we will go over with council and you guys can discuss this.
Dylan?
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Really excited. It's been a great year for capital projects already. Looking to carry a lot of that momentum into 2024. You know, we got some really good and fun, exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. Some of it you've heard, some of it you haven't, you know, some of it we're expanding upon. So I think we got a good plan moving forward, and let me share my screen and we can get into it. All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. So here we are in our capital fund section. Since our capital improvement plan is sectioned out by funds, so going right into our capital fund, we're starting off with our Highway 9 sidewalk improvements project. I've briefed you on this in the past. We're gaining traction. It's amazing. Chris McGinnis, you know, the town engineer, graciously stepped in to take something off my plate, which has been fantastic. And he's working with, you know, some clearances right now with CDOT. So we're expected to, you know, do construction next year. We have that 500,000 in MMLF funding that we received from the IMTPR. So, you know, we're moving full steam ahead with this, and Chris is doing a great job of getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted on that. And you'll be seeing a IGA with CDOT here shortly. this goes into our walkability improvements, and our walkability improvements were just certain areas that were funky or stuff that we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community. I know the leadership team has discussed in the past, hey, what are these outlying areas that need bolstering? So in that, what Chris and I have discussed for next year is the intersection that you're seeing here right by the fire station, doing some improvements there that were, left over to us from the GAP project. And then also looking at Pond Drive and Meadow Drive behind Walmart, as there's been continued community feedback there. And it just doesn't really work well with the bus stop that's right behind Walmart and people trying to get to the transfer center. Just even crossing the street on Hahn is difficult. So, we felt that was pretty good two areas to focus on. And Chris is doing a good job there again of doing some designing in-house, which is incredibly valuable. Neighborhood park improvement plan. Currently what we have on tap for 2024 is the Old Town Hall Park. The benefit of this is, and I'll get to it later discussing Old Town Hall, but since we are just staying within the footprint, the park stays the same size. We're just, giving it a facelift, and the park's getting a remodel as well. In addition to that, at Walter Byron Park, we'll be doing the viewing deck with that construction. And there will be an in-house planning effort for potential upgrades for Pioneer Park, since there's going to be now that we have a housing component that is a neighbor to that park. So that'll be exciting to jump right in on all those. Well, it's the next slide, as luck would have it. So Old Town Hall, I did come and discuss this with council a little bit ago. Just staying within our budget, that remodel is the option that we have to work with at this point in time. We have that ADA ramp and access on Main Street, expanded lobby area, our energy efficiency upgrades. And I am in the process right now of working with the Colorado Energy Office and combining that with Slopeside Hall to possibly get some grant funding for all the energy equipment that is going to go into both of those facilities. So that seems to be a fruitful endeavor, and we're very hopeful in our application there. Our PRA project construction, more apt, Slopeside Hall, Day Lodge remodel. The project, I certainly hope everybody's been able to see it as they're driving by, or have, ridden their bike by it or walked by it. The progress is going extremely well. Now that the framing is started, it's really starting to take shape. It's going to be a beautiful facility. So again, the components of Slopeside Hall project are our Slopeside Hall tube storage yurt and the newly redesigned plaza connection. And then we have the Day Lodge remodel, which will commence after the Slopeside building gets its CO, and Erin and her crew are able to finally get out of that basement. I'm clapping inside my head right now because it's long overdue. So very excited to see all of that come to fruition at this point in time. Our downtown complete streets for this project in particular, this would just be the focus of Granite Street. Katie and Emily have come and discussed with you, the council, about this project and shared those 30% design drawings. Fiscal year 2024 would take the town to 100% construction drawings and really be ready to start doing planning efforts of how it should be phased and other things like that, and really starting to go after potential grant funding down the road. hopefully something along the lines of TAP or MMOF, something along those lines, so we can really get this project done, because it will certainly help out that corridor in the core of town. Our town hall master plan, that is going well this year. For 2024, they're just going to expand, we're just going to expand on the facility needs and planning efforts to prepare for 25 and beyond, to really pin down on, again, how that project should be phased and what is most important to tackle first. So that's what we have going on for our beautiful town hall. Our trails enhancements and Frisco backyard plan. Again, Pete and his crew have been doing a fantastic job with the trails, building up a fantastic relationship with the U.S. Forest Service, which bodes well for the expansions that we want to do into the future. Highlights for next year, continued construction on the multi-use trails, Wonderland and Treasure Vault. Construction and connection segments for cross-country trails, for the running trails, improvements to the summer trails, specifically the Perimeter Trail, Excelsior Trail, and Crossover, and then improvements to Buzzsaw and Jody's Nugget for the winter trails. And that just also encompasses ongoing maintenance for both summer and winter as well. For our environmental sustainability, we have the Public Works fleet electrification. That's been a nice coordinated effort with Xcel Energy to get infrastructure to the Public Works facility. That would encompass the infrastructure piece, the chargers, and all the associated equipment. And other facilities that are going to be identified in our ESCO, which we have out to RFP right now, is where we can allocate some of that funding as well. So the ESCO will just be an assessment of the town facilities to see where we can gain back some credit and stuff like that for being more sustainable, and kind of retrofitting some of the equipment in those facilities to put us back into the green, so to speak. For our fiber infrastructure, 2024 is going to be heavy on a feasibility study and design for the fiber network. Again, another great benefit of now having Chris, our engineer, on staff, is that he did a plethora of this in his when he worked for Breckenridge. So bringing all of that experience to us is certainly going to help get all of the town infrastructure shored up and connected, so we town staff can better assist the community, and we'll get that part taken care of first, getting those major backbones taken care of, and then we can discuss down the road of how we want to either integrate the rest of town and businesses and stuff like that. The ever and infamous wash bay upgrade will be occurring next year. Just simplified, really. The equipment in there, especially the pump, is still working, which is amazing. So just retrofitting and upgrading some of the hardware and gear in there. Nothing fancy. This is not going to be a professional car wash by any means with automated services, but just long overdue for some simple upgrades. So the title is wrong for this, but this is the solar light retrofit to solar on Highway 9. And I'm sure everybody who has seen this driving through town is these poles get taken out from time to time. They're rusting away. They just don't fit anymore with the town, and especially with them being a wired option. You know, we can lower our carbon footprint by going with a solar option on those. And in the future, you know, we're planning to have every light pole match what our Main Street light poles look like. That's going to be our town spec. It's very unique to Frisco Main Street, and it gives a lot of character to Frisco Main Street. So that is what is going to happen there. And part of this project is going to encompass the newly designed medians and roundabouts project as well. And there was a grant applied for to assist in the initial expenditure, and that was coupled with Main Street, and the grant is called the Main Street Live Grant. So now we have our Main Street Light solar retrofit project. Again, just by this picture from Todd Powell alone, there's so much character and there's so much pride in these lights because they were built by the Public Works Department. So I know everybody in the building takes pride in these. The community does as well. And the issue that has been plaguing Public Works for a while now is that the light fixtures aren't made anymore. So we're at a crux point here where when something gets hit by a semi truck and is damaged and needs replacing, unless we have it in here, or if someone wants to bang out the dings and dents with a hammer and repaint it, you know, we're kind of out of options here. So again, we coupled this with the light poles on Highway 9 for that Main Street Live grant. Just keep the poles, but it's going to take down the fixtures and the light, and then everything will be run off of a solar engine. Our Miners Creek Rec Path Bridge. This won't be feasible until fiscal year 2026, but it's definitely worth mentioning because it will only help provide better services to pathway users in the future, in the winter and the summer. In the winter, you know, the maintenance can be quicker and more efficient on that by allowing a piece of equipment, you know, one of the sidewalk machines to go through there and open it up instead of having to spend so many man hours doing all the work by hand. So hoping to see that come to fruition, especially with my vast experience of doing the plowing in town. That would be a great benefit. The Marina Park Mobility Improvements Plan. This is just another piece of the master plan. What was, you know, Gray's and Torrey's lawn, that was what was completed this summer in the landscaping improvement project along with the picnic plaza. So, you know, just slowly taking bites out of the circulation and everything and circulation plan that needs to be accomplished to, you know, better facilitate a user experience down at the marina. So this is what that would encompass in 2027. The Marina Park Pavilion, again, this is in fiscal year 2027. The asphalt millings pad that was incorporated into the landscaping improvement project that we just completed, that is where that would sit. It is going to be a beautiful place to activate in the future. And with the funding for the landscaping improvement project, we not only built the pad, but we also put in electrical conduit and probably just going to get wiring set up for event power there either by the end of this year or next year, just so people could even use that space for a concert or anything else that needed a power. The Marina Park Playground, again, this was another part of the Marina Master Plan that was identified for removing and placing down by the beach. Since the beach is now one of the main attractions and all the kiddos down there, you know, it makes sense to have a playground in that area, especially with the new lawn as well. And this would go in the current area where the lighthouse is, where the lighthouse returned to. But yeah, this is further down the road in fiscal year 28. The beach sand, which Dylan had mentioned earlier, this is just going to be an ongoing expense. And the money that's put in fiscal year 27 is just a placeholder. We town staff will keep analyzing, you know, what is needed. Right now, you can definitely see if you were to go down there, it needs some buffing out. Certain spots are losing it, and the fabrics coming out from underneath and stuff like that. So we're keeping an eye on it. And, you know, and when the lake's really high, we're going to get some erosion going on. And then some years when we're not as fortunate, we won't need to do it. So this is just a good placeholder moving forward, but it's definitely needed for next year. Our storm system repair and maintenance. I've brought this to you several times. You know, we really need to get this into an asset assessment so we can formalize what sections are going to need to be, you know, either relined or removed and resized and stuff like that, especially now that we have users, especially in the Granite Alley, tapped into that for the projects. So more to come on that, but we are definitely trying to get the ball rolling as quickly as possible for that analysis. The Historic Park 5-year master plan, just like, you know, your every other master plan, identify the needs, some of the wants, the repairs, the upgrades, and the potential capital projects that'll be coming down the pipeline. And this will also include the First and Main property into that master plan process as well. So the boardwalk bridge analysis and design. So the boardwalk bridge is what, you know, we always named it at Public Works, and it is the long bridge in between Lake Point Circle and the towers. It's constructed in a wetland area, which required it to be built on piers. So there is a lot of fluctuation with the bridge itself. There's a lot of labor that goes into making sure it's still safe for all the pathway users. So analyzing that and getting a recommendation on what to do in the future will be great, just so we can provide a better experience and then possibly not have to put so many man hours and materials into just band-aiding it. But it is still good to go thanks to Adam and his team. Our technology purchases, just an annual expense. They are just like the vehicles. Certain departments get theirs 1 year and then on down the line, just a nice rotation that IT has going with that. So that is ongoing. Vehicle replacements. Again, this is just like our technology, a lot more expensive. But these are all the things where, you know, the equipment is what gets the job done for the community. And, you know, they're very key components to the town operations there. So next year we're a little lighter on purchases, but moving down, you can see You know, we got some nice peaks and valleys, but we're, you know, still catching up a little bit based on what COVID did in the past. This takes us to our water fund. And the water fund, they have vehicles as well that need replacement. So this is just capturing the vehicles that they need replacing as well. PFAS mitigation, this encompasses the well 7 upgrade and the advanced treatment to humidify all the PFAS and PFAS trace compounds. We are pre-qualified for the DWRF, which, you know, is a loan with 100% loan forgiveness. So that is a huge one right now, especially since we're pre-qualified. The storage tank access road is a big project, and it's absolutely needed just for the ongoing maintenance of that bit of our infrastructure. Unfortunately, the tank cannot be accessed off of I-70. That was pretty explicit even when the Forest Service went and asked on our behalf. So that is why this project is occurring. And the benefit of this is that it uses a Excel easement. So a lot of it is mapped, and, you know, we don't have many utilities to deal with. So it's been a good collaborative effort with the Forest Service and working with us on that. Moving to the housing fund, we have a Pitkin Alley design. So this is for the property at 406 8th Ave. So the design is expected to be completed next year, and then construction to take place in 2027. We have for sale units for some revenue, and we have 220 Galena Street and some places at Mary Ruth. So that'll be a nice source of revenue. Granite Park, construction, just like Slopeside Hall, wow, is going incredibly smooth. They're framing like mad people over there, and it is incredible to see. Progress is great. We do have that grant from DOLA on that. So, you know, that certainly helped with the cost, and we have our partnership with CDOT. So as of right now, I'll say myself and the town and CDOT are very excited with how everything is progressing. And at this rate, we will be closed in before the snow flies. So we're still on track to finish midsummer, actually late summer to early fall of next year. So that's very exciting. Our Galena Street project, with our purchase of the Colorado Workforce Center on Galena, there is now an agreement with NHP to construct more affordable housing on that. And I'm sure you've heard plenty about this project from both Tom and Leslie. Our lodging tax fund, we have a terrain park tow rope. This will be installed on the north side of the Magic Carpet. So if you were looking up, it would be on the left side, and this would facilitate, you know, usage by the ski and ride, school operations, and then later on, it can be used and utilized by the terrain park users. I think with this upgrade, there is definitely some revenue generating potential behind it. So more to come on that front, but I think that'll be a nice little addition to everything that is going on for the winter operations up there. The Magic Carpet belt, which, as we all know, just is used and abused, to put it pointedly, and it is time for it to get replaced. The benefit out there is, Sid is very skilled, and with his previous job with Vail Resorts, as a lift mechanic, very knowledgeable in this. So this will be a great project moving forward, and it's something we must do to keep the tubing hill running full tilt all the time during its operations. Lastly, getting to the Marina Fund. They have their equipment replacement. In 2024, they're going to see their 6 pontoons getting replaced and a replacement UTV. The UTV is electric and we'll be going with the same kind, just so staff can get back and forth to help them do their chores around there, trash, moving guests around as well. That's another aspect that I think gets forgotten of what that's used for. So it's very valuable to assist guests when needed to get out to the gangway. The paddle sport dock system, this is going to be in 26. That dock system, it works well, but it's showing its age. Extremely heavily used, as we can all see when we're down there. So it's time for that asset to get upgraded. Yeah, and it'll be a good one. For the Lund House in 2025, the deck definitely needs to be replaced. As we all know, Dave Bono is one skilled carpenter, but this is beyond Band-Aids. So that just needs to get ripped out and replaced. And there needs to be a new roof put on the Lund House as well. Shore power was one of the identifiable capital projects in the master plan. The benefit is that when we were doing upgrades for the Frisco landing facility, before the Frisco landing facility was constructed and before the sanitary sewer lift station was installed, Jeff Goebel did a great job at expanding Xcel Energy services all the way down to shore. So above the gangway, we have that transformer, and it's been adequately sized for all of those power needs for users in the future. And that is slated for 2027. So with that, those are the capital projects that we have coming, not only in next year, but in further years. So are there any questions? And if not, I will pass it off to Dylan again.
Addison, I do have a question.
Yes.
The water tank road, how does that interplay with the potential for Lake Hill?
So I believe when they were going through this planning iteration, that was one of the main topics of discussion. And Jeff Goebel, correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn on any of this, but that this plays well and nicely with the neighbors and potential neighbors, so to speak. Am I correct in that, Jeff?
You are. The original design of Lake Hill had a road for us, the one way back, whenever that was, had a road for us going to our tank. But since that whole design has changed now, and they're not even sure what they're doing as far as water tanks, lines, and all that stuff out there, we backed away from that because we need to get access to that road or to that tank. So we've gone this route after knowing that U.S. Forest Service tried to negotiate with the FHWA. Those two federal agencies could not come to an agreement to allow us to use I-7. That would have been the best way to go. We used to do that a long time ago. So anyway, this new road is what we have to have to do our tank maintenance.
So thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Questions? Madison?
I was sidebarring with Diane here about the sand at the marina. And I'm wondering, in an effort not to negate the millions of dollars we spent on the Big Dig project,
Yes,
and I know I'm being overly dramatic, but is there a way that we could potentially engineer something to help retain some of that sand from eroding into the lake, so that it slows that down, or that we're not just filling in the 10-mile inlet?
so way back when the Big Dig was still in design, I vividly remember that being a question. And we ended up with the design that we did because it was not feasible, because you would you would essentially have the beach sand going to like a retaining wall and then a drop off for users. So we did not feel that that was the best way. And again, I'm not an engineer, but it's something that now that Chris has heard this, that maybe we can explore some options and see what's feasible in the future.
Wondering if something even just like partially buried in what's eroded out already, like that it's not forming the edge of the beach, that perhaps it's out a little bit further. I don't know. There's got to be a way to make that better.
Re-dredge it back out.
Right? Like just reuse the sand. I don't know, but I can't imagine like replacing this every few years just because we've thrown our hands up and said this is the only way. I'm not convinced it's the only way. I am no engineer though. So now that we have Chris, he can figure it out.
Well, Chris, we got something on the docket for us, so that'll be a good one to explore.
Do granite, or we can keep the sand.
Yeah, exactly.
Allison, are you comfortable this list is manageable by the staff that we have?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that wasn't a statement on the staff, it's more of the number of people that we have.
Yes, I understood. No, we're more than capable, especially now that Chris is on board, having that other body and wealth of knowledge is already proving to be invaluable. So next project season, it's when we go out of the gate, it's going to be just fine.
Discussion points, or are we just?
Well, Dylan still has to go.
Going back to Dylan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So the discussion points we're bringing to council for our 2024 budget, we would like you guys to decide upon. We have a business license fee increase. The new streets position I had mentioned earlier. The new part-time building inspector position. The police take-home vehicles. All of those are in the budget for 2024 right now, but based on your discussion, we can change that. What's not in the 2024 budget, but council certainly has the say if they would like to change the new incoming town council wages and the planning commission wages that currently are not being paid. Right now, our business licenses are $75 for a business. That was last established in July 2002. $75 in 2002 is $130 in today's money. We are proposing an increase from $75 to $100, not $130, which inflation would suggest. That increase would be a 33% increase and net us $50,000 more in business licensing revenues, which would help offset the expenditures in the 2021 budget. The other one is
You just feel that people would have a hard time with that it going up so high.
I am not a business owner. I don't think $100 fee is very expensive for a business at all.
No, I'm wondering why you're going to 100 instead of going up to the 130 or 125.
We didn't need those revenues, so
Okay.
we just budgeted what we needed, what we thought the community would accept without much pushback. And that kind of aligned with all the other increases we've had in the water fund and everything else throughout the town.
Liz, you were gonna say something, but I have a comment too.
No, it was kind of similar to what
Okay.
Lisa said.
I'm wondering if it's not where, if we haven't looked at inflation and CPI over that time, should we be raising it every year so that there's less of a sticker shock
Or every, yeah.
to keep pace?
They should be
At some-
something anyway.
Yeah,
I agree.
Like a lot of fees, water billing fees, sales tax, remittance fees are looked at every year. This business licensing hasn't been looked at for the last 22 years. And we just felt that this year, increasing it from $75 to $100 would give us a huge budget increase to revenue to help offset just the cost of those.
at a minimum, we should be revisiting it every year. If not, just automatically increasing it.
Do we know what other towns we charge with licenses?
I do not know the exact. I know Breckenridge's, I think, is based off of percentage of their sales. Ours is across the board. I think down in Denver, business licenses are lower than what we have here, I've heard, but the cost of doing business is lower. I don't know what other mountain communities across the state.
Sorry, I just didn't, I was curious, $200 plus 10 per employee. It's not percentage of sale, it's a flat rate plus employees.
So if you had like under 10 employees, $200, and then
And for just somebody doing like being like a seasonal vendor, it's 100, so it would be.
I didn't hear anything in the presentation that makes me think we need more money. And just to raise fees for the sake of raising fees, it doesn't gravitate as necessary.
I think that's what you were saying before, right?
Well, earlier in our management discussions, looking at budget, and there were some shortfalls in revenue compared to expenditures. And we're brainstorming of how to bring up revenues without too much of an impact on the town. And this was brought up as $50,000 that we needed to balance the budget.
Well, how many more business licenses do we have since 2022? 22, yes.
Yeah.
002.
Yeah.
Right, and how many more staff have we, like, I don't think there's been a change in staffing, manage the business license. And compared to
I just feel like if you don't keep pace, then there comes a time when you need to set that and it becomes this horrible sticker shock. And so if you're not doing something annually to kind of keep pace, or maybe not annually, maybe that's not right, but I do think there comes a time when this is gonna get raised and it'll be a huge sticker shock if you're not adjusting that with with
Late might
prices
be a
in
big
general.
thing for people who've been in business for a while and they're like, why would we get away with this for a long time? That's okay, but the business that just went into business the previous year is gonna be. It's huge.
$45 more on your business license is not much more for like, having to conduct business.
Dylan, do you want to go through all of these or do you want us to give feedback?
I just have two slides for the business licensing and the council wages. But here's the full list.
I have the police take on vehicle question. How's that a budgetary impact? I missed how that,
It will increase the number of vehicles. that
okay, we need,
have.
so it's not a vehicle pool, everyone has their own then.
Correct.
Thank you.
And then additional wear and tear and.
Yeah.
And Lisa and Liz, just so you know, this has been part of the discussion as far as retention of police officers. And it's like one of the most important things that police officers want.
Yeah. Thank you.
Back to your slides, go Terry.
This just again shows the 50,000 increase for business licensing. And we currently, here is what our council is being paid. Compared to other towns in our community. And then there is an additional option for childcare reimbursement for council members coming to meetings if you need childcare. We don't have the planning commission because they are currently not getting paid. So
It's just so to preface that discussion in the council. We've heard from a couple of council members that these topics might want to be talked about. So with the childcare part of it, we didn't really know where to begin, but we offer a suggestion if there's.
I don't know about the childcare part of that, but even at CAST and all, this is a major equity issue. You only have people running for council that can afford and have the time to run for council.
Which childcare.
Anybody else who's young, who can't necessarily afford it, won't do it. And so this is the thing, like other towns per CAST meetings, they're all getting paid for their time. And for how wealthy we are as a town for 2,500 voters. I feel like you should get compensated for your time. With that, obviously, it's not very popular politically to raise your wages. So that would have to be, I would think, almost 2 election cycles.
But we can't leave.
You can't, it's for the next
So it has to
fiscal,
be
so
for the
if we pass this, it's for, yep. But regardless, my husband tells me this every single council meeting. Because come winter time, we are struggling with this horribly, and it's made me personally think through whether I could stay on this council longer without having childcare help. And we've managed to make it work, and I'm almost done, but every single meeting, we have this conversation about how can people in the future be able to participate. So I think we need to look at it, and I don't know if that's the right one for me either. I mean, I can tell you what the going rate of a babysitter is, but it's for our family, it would have made a huge difference.
Only the statement of. I understand. I think there are lots of people faced with lots of challenges to be on council. I don't think that I think it's an important thing that we discuss. But do we want to say we're going to provide a special benefit to people who have young children? That's who we want to make sure we're covering. and all of the people we're not providing a benefit for, whether it's elder care. I mean, I don't intend disrespect if it's dog care. How are we prioritizing one demographic group to encourage them to overcome their challenges to provide service to the town? It's a bigger topic than it should just be thrown into the budget. I think it's a topic we should discuss. But we have 4 people on council who have figured out how to overcome this challenge and serve. So what is the problem we're trying to solve? And if we have a problem, of recruiting all people to be able to serve on council, then we should discuss that. But I don't think we could just very quickly say parents of young children are the only people who are challenged to serve.
Would you feel more comfortable if it just said caregivers? Because like somebody who was caring for their elderly parent.
Or if we just paid appropriately to allow people to overcome the challenges of childcare. Maybe they have to give up a different job to serve on council, if that's an issue. Maybe we're just not paying enough, maybe we are, I don't know. But it rubs me wrong to provide a benefit to one demographic group that without addressing the larger problem of what are the challenges that are keeping people from running for council. This is one of them.
Or look at
But
it,
this is not the only one that we should prioritize over the others without exploring it just a little deeper. And it's an inconsequential amount of money. So if we have the conversation and we come to a solution, I don't think there's any problem finding the $4,800 for whatever the issue might be.
or maybe we come at it from a totally different direction, and how can we ensure that future town councils would be a full representation of our community, whether, you know what I mean, like what would it take to get a diverse council, you know? Because for as long as I've lived here, I mean, this is for a million years, not a million, but 20+ years, our town councils have primarily been made up of older folks, retired folks, people that had extra time. And I think that this town council has been so exciting to me because we're all different. We all have different things. And in my opinion, I feel like we've been able to get a lot done. And I think a diverse group of folks is exciting and it keeps our community fresh. So anyway, I'm just saying, maybe look at it like, how can we get everybody on town council? You know what I'm saying? Instead of like,
People say we meet at night. I don't go out at night.
well, how about we have 8 AM meetings? Because I'd be,
These are important issues. What and I put out there, I think it goes back to other things that Dylan pointed out in other slides, but I think we should keep some sort of placeholder in the budget as we move forward so we can continue this conversation. But I think it should be broader than council because we're not the only one impacted. Look at behind us and what we ask of staff, that maybe it's some sort of onsite during meetings after normal work hours, childcare for council and staff. Because that is something people aren't doing, and that's more inclusive. It's not just for us. It's helping everybody who's impacted by what it takes to run a community. So I'd be in favor of keeping placeholder in there of some sort.
Yeah, I know. Andy just mentioned CAST is looking at some of this. I'm wondering if CML doesn't have some list. I mean, it's interesting to see our peers, but there's other communities that are further ahead of us on the DEI side and just sort of trying to understand what other programs are available. Certainly the planning commission and other volunteer boards, the arts commission, you know, while there's a level of like kind of established to be maybe not deliberately volunteer based, but like we need to compensate people for their time. And if that means that money can be spent towards childcare or some other thing that people need, but and I agree, this is a great example, Hunter, that staff is here, well beyond the hours of a typical work week as well. And so how does all that play in? But maybe CML has a survey or something. I mean, maybe can we ask them that question? not super engaged in CMO, so I don't really know. But
It's also important to just put a dollar number up there, but what is their commitment to continuing? Like, I know that the rec council puts a lot more time in their job than we do. The service on committees, they have obligations far beyond what we put on ourselves. So their number isn't just dramatically more than ours, their obligations are too. So, and by the way, just, I do think planning commission should.
Yeah, you can only
They
get so
work
much
really
out of
hard.
people out of the passion for doing it.
yeah,
That only lasts so long, and then they lose the passion. And then all of a sudden, you're stuck doing something, not being compensated, and that is planning commission and arts commission, whatever else. But, yeah, I mean. this is-
are any of the planning commissions here paid?
Don't know the answer to that.
How heavily do we rely on planning commission? You know, like, for me, they make a big impact. Like, I learn a lot from that. So, I mean, maybe look at it that way too, like, we're utilizing this group of people in such an important way.
There should be
Some big support for planning commission wages.
Yes.
I support that, yeah.
Council wage increase, I wasn't sure where. And I can't remember the exact rules, I know Thad is on here, he's also suffering from budget fever, or whatever that. Oh, he looks great. Thad, can you just quickly refresher on wage increases for electeds and how that rollout goes?
I can, thank you. Under the Colorado Constitution, no elected official is allowed to act on an increase or decrease in compensation that would affect that elected official's pay. So the way that this happens typically is as you approach a new set of terms on council, as we will be next spring, in advance of that, you adopt an ordinance that says, with respect to any council members not currently in office, as of that forward date, the compensation will be X. For that current council member sitting, they retain the same salary until that seat is changed. So it rolls in over time based upon the fact that no elected official can vote to increase or decrease their own salary going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Appreciate that. Just so everybody's. So, I mean, I think I'd be in favor of looking at a modest increase. I think based on the presentation tonight and everything else, the workload we have taken on, well, maybe not to say that the committees and whatnot, is more so than it's been, in my opinion, in my tenure.
I think we should look at it, right? A lot of other municipalities are already there. They're beyond where Breckenridge is. I was taking vacation when I first came on council just to attend meetings. Like, I wanted to, it was cool. I've done no boo-hoo, but I mean, it was right. It was going both ways. So, and I learned a ton. It's been great. No regrets. But if we can make it more palatable for other folks and make it more inclusive, then let's take a look.
And I think there's another side to this too, and that is how do we support our employees taking volunteer time to participate on other boards and to be a part of the community? So do we have a policy through HR that allows either paid volunteer time off or some kind of, but I don't know what that looks like, but I think there's an opportunity to say, okay, you know, you live in Silverthorne, you work in Frisco, but you want to run for Silverthorne Town Council, like you should be encouraged to do that. And so, you know, is there an opportunity to explore that a little bit further?
I want to say Grand Vacations just had their event last week. Colleen went to, and they do compensate. I may have the wrong business, but I believe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And they are compensating their employees for volunteering.
And Breckenridge is piloting this with 16 paid hours of volunteer time, but that's not enough to participate for 4 years on a council. So I think there's a gap there between just sort of going out and doing a volunteer gig for a day or whatever versus serving on a board, which I think is a lot more time consuming. It is, I don't think, it is a little.
Does staff get, like, when they stay for this, do they get to come in later tomorrow? My wrong, but that's how it works in.
Show up at night.
Yes, if they're an hourly employee, we're gonna manage that. Cause we're trying our best to not pay overtime for things, and there's one person in this room in that situation. But for salaried employees, you know, they're gonna manage their time. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I'm here at 5:30, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we want to see what others are charging and then come back during when the first reading? When we're on there just.
And like Thad has indicated, we can put a placeholder in the budget. An ordinance could be passed later on that actually implements something. So you have time to deal with the issue. We don't have to have the full answer for any of this prior to adopting that second reading.
Business license fees, did I hear we're support of that? Yeah.
20 years is a long time.
But make sure we put it on a regular schedule.
Yeah. At least look at. The streets position, does anybody have any questions about?
I do.
that? Go ahead.
Kind of describe what that is.
So streets does winter maintenance in winter, and of course, they're doing all of the maintenance side of contracted work summer. They don't switch back and forth to other types of
Right.
work.
Oh, so this is the new. Oh.
Plowing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's probably overdue.
I thought we were gonna rearrange the streets.
Yeah, we didn't like the they all wow. We.
Actually, to the street to get the sun this. Sure.
So it sounds like we're good there. The part-time building inspector.
Yep. Yes.
It's part-time, all you need, it seems to me like.
We'll see.
It's a good start. Well, I know there's a lot of other options there within the program that other towns do with the county, so. Start probably to a bigger conversation that we should probably have at some point. Take home vehicles.
What's the number on that?
It's not inexpensive, because we'll have to add, I think we're gonna add 4. It's 2 years, so 4 more cruisers, 24, 4 more in 25.
So 8 more.
Yes. Workable. So if I remember correctly, the analysis of this, and I think you're essentially to purchase the vehicle and upfit it, you're easily into $80,000 to $90,000 a vehicle.
Yeah, the Interceptor was 60, but then it has to get upfitted.
So a hybrid is just.
How many officers do we have?
Have 13 on staff. 13 sworn officers,
And 8 of them are gonna want to take their cars home.
and I think this includes the replacement schedule for vehicles at the same time.
Is there a benefit to those who aren't taking?
They have a bunkhouse.
Yeah, but the value of that on top of your salary.
Yeah, I see what you're asking. We have not looked at that.
It's about $10,000 to $12,000 we figure they can do. And it will be maintained by the officers, and then of course, talking about they will have a time of 1 to 2 and 6 months.
Do you compensate officers that are not taking advantage of that benefit?
That's
choice.
Yeah,
To me, that's a, like, choose to do it, we have that option, but if you choose not to, like.
This is, why do they need if we're buying more cars just so they can take them home, why do we need to buy them cruisers?
because you want them to be able to respond
But they're in Lakewood.
and they can respond there. Not to our issues, but they can respond while they're on the road. They can respond while they're in their community. That's,
Now I'm confused. I realize the issue, I understand it if they live in Silverthorne. If they're down in Lakewood in a car, in a marked Frisco police cruiser,
they're not out of their jurisdiction.
they are not.
Nope.
but if there's a burglary, how do they, are they on duty? Or like, what if they respond?
Chief,
Chief,
you want
yeah.
to take this one?
What if they respond while they're down there? Who's paying them that work
And
activity?
who's liable?
Yeah.
So if you're in Lakewood and it's a felony stop, it's gonna pull over and help that officer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is the officer on duty? Like, are we
He'll
paying?
put himself on duty.
So now it's
Like, that's our.
we're now,
Do that.
because we're giving the police officer a cruiser, are we adding hours for serving the town of Lakewood and liability? Or what if they do a bad job in Lakewood? Because at this point, none of that happens, right?
So-
Because they drive home in their car and
So
they're,
we're all short in the state.
Yeah.
Staffing is extremely short. We're trying to help them out. Look at it that way. Well, I mean, you're not gonna be. It's not gonna be anything extended. I mean,
Sure, it's just
cover, there are other officers coming in, or just like at Lakewood, in your back. So let's call them.
Yeah.
But
It's like the guys that live over in Alma coming over. They had covered twice with Blue River on felony stops. This just happened Sunday. So it was a hell of a benefit. They didn't have any, they had one officer on.
There's a number of, from what I see, when I was working down there with a car, it was a different program. I was ineligible to bring it home. So I didn't reap the benefit of having the back and forth on a company vehicle, which is one of the benefits. What I see it as a benefit to the town is we have our vehicles scattered out and about. And folks know there's a police officer in their neighborhood. They know they can stop in Blue River on their way into work. They can help out state patrol if something's going on the highway. Those guys are hanging it out there all day long. And gals. So I see it as an increased presence in the region, if you will. I don't want to say state because that's too big, but if they can help on the I-70 corridor or in the coming to and from work, I think that's a benefit to the industry.
Are they
if
only
you will.
helping if other police officers are already in? Like if something's already happening, or they decide like,
They're not going to respond, Tom, tell me, so they're not going to respond to a robbery in Lakewood.
wait, are they gonna pull somebody over for speeding?
I don't think so. But we have certain things they can do. And I think that, I mean, if you're going down I-70 at the speed limit, some guy comes by at 120, yeah, we're gonna stop him. But
I'm thinking of the possibilities of it being taken advantage of to get extra money. Cause we're human.
They won't work through that long if they do that.
Well, I think I look at this in a slightly different financial take is how many officers we've paid to put through the academy and then lose, and talking to almost every one of them I've talked to. This is something that as a retention piece, as Andy mentioned, is a huge deal. And if it saves us one officer for another 2 years, that costs me experience, community knowledge, everything else is worth it, even if it's not a net gain or is zero sum math.
I think
That's the retention of an experienced officer, and it's not us sending additional officers. Like I met our two newest candidates yesterday. You know, it's awesome. It's great to see fresh blood, people eager to join a profession that is struggling. And if this is something that keeps one or both of them here for 2 years longer than normal, like that's an investment that's worthy to me. That will never ROI, we'll never be able to have Dylan do his magic with it, but the overall benefit is massive in my opinion.
And it's probably good to have the same officers within a community for a period of time, just for the community's benefit. You get to know them, and I know I get to know them. No, it's not. I'm kidding.
A little lost. One is this is a major question. This is an $800,000 question. Why is this this is not advocating, this is learning. Why is this a benefit that the police deserve and our other department employees don't?
So I'll answer one thing. First of all, it's the pool of where we recruit from for officers has become front range. We generally have a very hard time having local officers that live locally. That's not the case with the recruitment of the rest of our employees.
And, you know, there's this hazard pay comparatively, like for what they're getting paid compared to other employees. They need some bonuses. That's my personal opinion, only that, you know, for retention and whatnot. You know, like, I think your big question of like, well, how come we can't have a zip car that takes them down to Denver as opposed to a cruiser? I think the answer was because we are gonna cover everyone else along the way. And we are is how, you know, Chief's operating, which I'm behind the idea because I think it's, you know, that's.
If I knew that Arvada police are coming skiing in their cruisers and would help us in times of need. Right, I don't. I spent too much time as a lawyer. We leave our jurisdiction and we're out there doing stuff in other communities, and all of a sudden, are they on the clock? Are they off the clock?
our jurisdiction goes statewide. The state of Colorado on our badge. We will take action if we need to. It doesn't.
That's news to me, and that's why that's.
Yeah.
I always thought that if I decided to pass the Frisco Cruiser in Clear Creek County, he might radio somebody, but he. I'm not because it's his jurisdiction.
Another issue about radios, but we have to talk with those folks.
I think to me, the thing is we're not inventing something new. We're trying to keep up with other police departments. We're in competition with for recruits.
In fact, no, other than I think Avon, is doing this time, maybe Vale, they're now going to this program. All sheriff departments, they have taken cars throughout history.
Do they do jurisdictional limits?
What's that?
Do most sheriffs, do they do jurisdictional limits? Like, we'll give you a take-home car if your home is within this circumference.
I know that Fitzsimons had his folks that were living over the pass park at Blue River. He's since changed that.
We have the money.
I think it's just a community
And
benefit.
budget already.
Is what I would say, is that there's the reason other employees, most of our employees do not have take-home cars is because they do a great job at work, but if they're not at work with their tools and their computers in their office, there's really no community benefit to them when they're not here. If the police officer's out in the community, there's the presence alone to me is where the dividends are. If I'm knowing parts of Lakewood, if I see it,
When there's a police car on my street and it's an awesome thing.
that's it, thank you.
It's usually my neighborhood police officer as opposed to. Right.
I would say you see that less and less. I mean, you'll see these cars in all different communities. Range or in most metro areas because police officers don't live generally in the communities that they work in.
And I think to your concern, at least you agree with on the be working all the way home. I highly doubt that. There's gonna be the one-off. They are the vehicle that witnesses the horrible accident and they're able to control traffic to make the scene safe until they're relieved by the proper jurisdiction. It's not that their 10-hour shift was so, that they're so amped to keep working that all the way home, they're trying to find or doing whatever is next. It's just, their radio doesn't work, the radio's off, they're probably listening to podcasts and chat with their family heading home, just like the rest of us. But I've done it in a search and rescue vehicle, driving back from a call, witnessed a traffic accident, had lights and sirens and was able to block the road. Not my jurisdiction, not my world to live in, but could create a safe environment for the 3 minutes it took for the fire department to respond. Right. And that's what I see them doing. Not that they're looking for every single thing that on their way home.
I guess, does the fact that they're driving in a cruiser change anything versus what they're doing now and whether it's their own car? I don't know.
Well, yeah, it slows everybody down.
I realize that, but does it change? Let's just say, assume one of our officers is driving to their home in now tonight in their personal vehicle. Next year, they're driving in the cruiser. Same situation happens. The only difference is the civilian clothes, civilian car, only civilian clothes, take home car. Would they act any differently at the incident? Just because they have a cruiser, is it changing the role of the human?
I think the lights and sirens really help out.
Yeah. Something.
I've been in a situation where there was a rollover. My husband and a friend, we were the first people to drive up on this crazy thing. We pull over and we're calling 911 and I don't even want to talk about it. But then the cars that were coming behind us, I mean, we were running for our lives up this hill because there was a semi, another car. Anyways, I think lights and sirens would have slowed those folks down and they wouldn't have come up on the accident so quickly. I mean, we were afraid we were going to get hit because it was such a disaster of everything that was there. But you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like the visibility of it is safe and good.
Human in the car is what they're doing now. They're already doing the things that I've expressed a concern for, or.
Right, and we had officers stop on the highway, in their own cars.
Yeah.
They take an action. It would be nice with their own vehicle, with all their gear in the back, they have them ready to go. And we carry our guns off duty, got your badge. It's not like.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
I see all sides of this and I'm willing to support it, but I guess my one thing is, you read in headlines, drive the worst of the worst. But like, if you're almost always on duty or could be on duty, who's off duty and what are they doing when they're off duty? And if it's in a Frisco police car and they're rolling up to the bar or whatever, and so like, where do we draw the line between when you're in this car and you're on duty for the town of Frisco versus doing all your private stuff?
So
like, I don't want you out there doing your stuff in the town of Frisco police. Okay.
And I'm going to the bar. You gotta take it on personal.
Thank you. Okay.
So I know it's kind of like that. I would assume that, falls under town policy for any.
It's the same thing with the town vehicle right now.
Do the vehicles have GPS trackers? Do our cruisers or vehicles have trackers on?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
We can take, one of them, take those off. I'm just kidding.
So, once you get
You should do that.
am I hearing any?
So to get back to the proposal, are we, so we need to buy the 4?
It's gonna take 2 years.
It's 2 years.
Okay, that was my question.
Fully
What is the
implemented.
actual, okay.
And that includes the replacement schedule for the vehicles that they already have.
Is it easy to provide, my last question, I think I promised. Is it easy to provide the policy statement for the rules that they will be able? Meaning, you're not just gonna throw the keys at the officer and say, have a nice day. You're gonna have a set of rules of that they can't take it to the bar, they can't go shopping.
Can we
see that
We can
policy?
provide that for you when we come.
That would make me more comfortable with the policy, knowing what the rules are about them taking.
Thank you.
Agreed, I agree.
Everything else, any discussions? What else do you need, Donna?
That's all I needed.
Council, anything you brought up in your one-on-ones or anything else worried about, concerned? Not seeing that we should be talking about. Two things in my notes is that I'm glad that we still have the dumpster enclosure budgeted, still going, and also what I heard from Dylan was that we've got at least 5 more years of construction on some of our medians or sidewalks. So we're continuing that trend of.
Well, when you say 5 years, that means it's in the 5-year plan. It won't be 5 years of construction. But the interchange. I can't guarantee it.
Well, then with that, Dylan, thanks for, sorry.
Just telling Andy, just in our discussion with one of the officers, he brought us out back. And talked about what he goes through each day, and he said, when he gets to work, it takes him 45 minutes before he can even work. Because he has to switch all the tools and equipment from the car he's taking over from the car he already had. He said just that alone, saving him an hour and a half where he can be out doing his job rather than checking a checklist. Do I have this? Do I have this? He knows he has. He was just saying that it's huge. I don't know if it's my spot to say that, but I just thought out of that perspective.
I mean, I want to know why the officer took you out back. Has everybody done a ride along?
I've not.
Chief, did you hear that? We got 4 ride along, 3 ride alongs.
I've heard a lot of that, but I've never really seen it.
Final word. We want to break for dinner, we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock.
Hello, test one, two. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Thad, but I can't hear them.
No, I can't hear them either.
Okay. Are you playing golf on Thursday?
No, I tested positive for COVID last night.
Oh,
My first bout with this whole thing. I have not had so much as a sniffle in 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. It's going okay so far. We've both got it, Nicole and I. So we're vaxxed and boosted and all of that stuff. So I'm sure this is much milder than it would be otherwise.
Yeah. I had it 3 times.
Oh, geez. And you have them really
No.
bad?
None were as bad as the first time. But I had it pretty good. You know, I think it has to do with viral load and how much you end up ingesting to make it worse on you or not. But but yeah, I mean, there's not much you can do at this point, I don't think. We are 7 o'clock.
Yeah, it looks like someone just sat down, maybe Elizabeth. I'll bet the clerk will bring us live here soon. My screen is still showing them as having muted themselves at the moment.
Well, good luck. Feel better.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, Andy. Take care.
Clock. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for the Frisco Town Council. Can I have the roll call, please?
Aaron, here, Burley,
Here.
Martinson.
Here.
Here. Olenka.
Here.
Check Adrian.
Here.
Held.
Here. Here, could you hear that?
Gonna make the meeting entertaining.
Did you get all that, Andy?
Only thing
Andy
better
Herder,
about
can
being on the
anyone hear
record is
me?
being on the record twice. So,
Perfect.
or 3 times. Next up. Let's see, we'll take a second, figure this out. Yep.
Testing. Can anyone in council chamber hear us?
I still hear you, Thad.
Yep, ditto. I can shoot
Yeah. I was gonna
see if I've got
message.
Kyle's number.
I'm texting with him right now, helping him out.
Okay. Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you,
worries.
Stacy.
I'm at home with strep this evening.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
All right. Nope. So try asking Andy.
Andy or Thad, can you guys hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Nope. All
All
right.
right,
He
you
said
got us and we lost you.
Yes, no?
I can hear you.
Stand by.
I just said I can
All right.
Yeah, Andy said he could hear us, but we couldn't hear him respond.
Correct.
We are reaching out to help.
Case of fossils.
Really?
And you see that? I think they're fossils.
Looks like he's on pedal.
Like our age, probably.
So.
And I'm starting to feel like a fossil.
Hey, Kyle, can you hear me? No, I
He's gonna
can't hear
fix
us.
it from afar.
I think it's a speaker. I think try unmuting the speakers in the room from your little control panel there.
Control.
Can he hear you, Stacy?
I don't know. I was trying.
DeBello, I went to order boots.
Now you can hear me through the mics, correct?
Well, they're not shipped yet. Yeah, they're.
Like, testing. Hello, everyone.
It's, I can't
They
hear
got
you guys
Yeah,
talking
and now
to
they think, now you're
us.
thinking they do for your size, you're gonna buy it right away, because you're worried they're gonna buy it.
Can I hear you, Thad?
Well, I am, because I need.
They can't hear us.
No, they cannot. I can hear Kyle talking to Stacy. Oh,
Actually, gonna. Calling
can't
Tom.
hear them even. Yeah, they're muted.
I just got off the phone with Kyle. I think we're back on track.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's going on now. I thought we were back on track. Yikes, sorry.
Okay, by me.
Yeah, we'll see how the exec session goes, but doesn't look like the meeting is going to engender a lot of discussion.
See if Andy Held still has a fax machine, he could fax in his comments.
No.
I'm still trying to figure out how that technology works.
Or courier.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Better than anything else. It's still a phone line.
I don't know.
You can't hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you, Andy, but apparently they can't still.
Andy Hill's calling me.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy.
So have him just stay on mute until we ask him to talk, maybe.
Sorry, everyone. I am texting with Kyle right now to see if we can get this sorted.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, maybe we have it sorted. Can we turn the volume down in here?
How come your microphone goes red? Mine's so loud.
All right, how's that?
Good.
Hello, hello.
Stacy, okay, Thad, I just heard you. Stacy or Andy, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep. All right, I can hear you.
Nice
I can hear
job.
Thad.
Nice work.
We're not hearing ourselves on endless echo.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I feel like we at least recorded the roll call and that is sufficient, so that's good. All members are present. Which takes us to the next item, which is public comment. Anyone who wish to make a public comment may do so now. Please be topic specific for anything that is not on this evening's agenda. Take no longer than 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone, if you're online, you can try unmuting yourself, see how it goes. And seeing none in chambers and none online, I will close public comment back to mayor and council comments.
On the first week in October, HC3 is hosting Climate Week, and on that October 4th, there is a legislative delegation coming to take a tour of the SCRAP, the Summit County Resource Allocation Park, to talk a little bit about the producer responsibility bill that was passed in 2021. So it's basically the biggest leap forward that the state has done in recycling ever. And so you guys are all invited, but they are asking for RSVPs. So I just wanted to make sure that was on your radar and that you got the information and RSVP if you're interested in going. But if you've never been to our landfill, never seen our recycling, it's a great opportunity, but also to hear from Julie McCluskey and Dylan Roberts are going to be there, as well as other local electeds. So just wanted to plug that event on October 4th.
Have we been invited or it's coming?
Hmm?
Have we been invited or it's coming?
Thank you. I'm not sure.
We will RSVP for you if you want to go. You can go.
We tell Stacy.
Yeah, we'll tell Stacy, or if you're gonna tell her afterwards, that's fine too.
Okay.
Others? Great.
I just wanted to acknowledge that yesterday we passed another milestone. 22 years ago, a bunch of folks lost their lives by one of the largest attacks that ever happened on our country. And I was fortunate enough to spend the day with a bunch of first responders yesterday and from all walks of the community, and a lot of thought was put into it, and a lot of folks just taking care of each other is what I was asking folks to do all day. So thanks.
And if you didn't know, there is a 9/11 memorial at the county commons with one of the girders from the Twin Towers. So pretty powerful place. There's no other council comments. Any staff updates?
Got a few. It's kind of a busy week. We've got Mayor's Cup on Thursday for those that are participating in that. Also on Thursday, if you're not participating in the Mayor's Cup, you have the opportunity to go to the Colorado Mountain College Student Housing and Academic Edition that they did. Their open house and ribbon cutting is happening that day at 3 p.m. I've got Addison is going to represent the staff there. If I encourage council members to attend to show support for their programs. Coming up on October 25th, CDOT will be doing their first open house on the Exit 203 project. So it will be the big reveal of the revised concept that the public has not seen yet. Well, you can get on the website and kind of see some of it, but from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Day Lodge. And just to remind the council, they'll be finishing up their public work. Most of their public work this year. They'll be in design in 2024. The earliest construction dates will start in 2025.
You said the 25th.
I did October 25th from 4 to 7 p.m. If you need help with your two-factor authentication, we will line that up for you where you can directly contact Joe and he'll walk you through it. It has made our system much more secure. We just had some incidents on our email right before we implemented it. That's why we implemented it early. We weren't planning on doing it until later in the year, but it precipitated that. And then I just wanted to get, and you don't have to tell me today, but because we have some time to deal with it, but we have our 3 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo units that we purchased under Housing Helps. We've done the energy audits on them. We're going to be doing some work on those while we get them through the process and into the process to sell them. The town has never done anything with lotteries, and lotteries are a big topic amongst all the communities, and they're using them for their for sale products now that are deed restricted. These might be a little different depending on whether we AMI restrict them or not, and we haven't really had that discussion yet. But if the council is interested in us trying a lottery, this would be a good time for us to do that with these units. So I just wanted to get the council's read on that. Doesn't have to be tonight. I can poll again next meeting.
Giving it a shot. I know a lot of people are doing it.
Would that be
Yeah, I know.
through the housing authority, through us, through our housing authority?
Yes, typically it would be done through the housing authority. Housing authority has its own issues right now that I've been describing to the council in my individual meetings, but it would not be difficult for us to do it ourselves if we were gonna do that.
I've told you before, some of the concerns that I have, that I think long-term locals should have more entries into the lottery than somebody who just moved here 2 weeks ago, something like that. I think that that's important.
The example that we would probably model off of is what Silverthorne is currently doing with Smith Ranch. And it at least has a 1-year requirement. In
Okay.
their lottery, you have to have lived or worked in Silverthorne for a year before you're eligible to go into their lottery.
But I think that's just for eligibility, right? So she's talking about extra balls in the pot.
Right,
Yeah.
just, somebody who's lived here for 30 years has the same chance as somebody who has lived here for a year and a week. Like,
I
maybe
agree.
entry for every 10 years or 5 years or something like that.
Well,
For
if
Mountain
we
West,
do this, we'll want to review it with the council first before we go down that road.
So go ahead, Andy.
This road is paved with all the deed restriction discussions that we need to do anyway. I think it should all be happening together. Although I know you're looking to move on, getting somebody into these units, but I'm in favor of continuing this as like work session or something.
That's all I've got.
Excellent, thank you. Next up this evening is the consent agenda. Yep.
Question on consent. Not opposed, but can we hear from either Andy or Elizabeth, just a little bit of background? Why did they, the people were voting on for the Arts Commission, sort of just a synopsis of who they are, why you picked them?
Happy to. Go for
Go
it.
for it, Andy. Yeah.
You want me to go first, Liz?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, we picked Jamie Callahan and Diane Hardy. Overwhelmingly, these people have been fully involved in every step of the way with Make Frisco
and all of our art efforts as locals, as professionals, as artists. Diane Hardy is the hat maker. She's got the hat shop at the end of Main Street there. And Jamie Callahan is a schooled, trained artist, and also sits on Summit County Arts Council board. And I felt overwhelmingly these two had the representation that we need or we're looking for.
I back up everything Andy says, and part of the thing is they were part of that work that we all did to create that strategic arts and council goal or arts and culture goal. So that piece that we had brought to council, like they were a part of that group, and they've showed up, I don't know, for all the years that I've lived here in the arts and as artists. And I feel like they really represent our community well.
Thanks. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
And move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on the motion? So the question
Held,
Yes.
Palenko,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Mortensen,
yes.
Skrupchak, Adrian,
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley.
That agenda passes. Next up in new business is agenda item number 1. This is first reading ordinance 23-24, an ordinance amending chapter 180 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Frisco concerning the Unified Development Code by amending section 180-4.2.4.2 concerning rezoning to a planned unit development and section 180-4.3 concerning planned unit development overlay district to provide for rezoning to the overlay district based upon the construction of workforce housing. I'll open up a public hearing through the staff. And Katie's getting set up.
Thank you. So, counselors, I am happy to go through a presentation with you, or I'm happy to just take questions if you have them. I know we went through this in length at the work session 2 weeks ago. I did want to note we made the suggested changes that council had requested. Those did include reinserting type of uses. So any use, whether permitted or additional or not listed, can be considered within a PUD. And then also staff has removed the 30-foot perimeter setback requirement for PUDs. So we did make modifications as you saw in your packet. If you want more information, I'm happy to go through it.
People feel good post-work session and reading the staff memo packet. Great. And with that, I think that was faster than me reading the ordinance name. I would open up to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this particular agenda item? Seeing none in chambers, none online, I'll close public comment and back to council discussion.
I just want to say, Katie, thank you for identifying a problem that was not aligning with our goals and where we're trying to get, and then bringing us a solution. I feel like a lot of times it's like, hey, here's the problem. What do you guys want to do about it? And we're not the experts to weigh in on that. So I just appreciate this approach and getting it done. And thank you.
Happy to.
Yeah.
So appreciate getting to work with you on it and getting comments too. So.
Yeah, I'll jump in if I could too. Yeah, thanks, Katie. Phenomenal job. As I said last week, you identified an issue that was a stopgap, and you took it upon yourself and you fixed it. And this is a good avenue for many of our future potential workforce housing and beyond projects. So I appreciate it.
Discussion, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve on first reading ordinance 23-24.
Move to approve by Councilmember Burley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Skrupczak. Adrian, is there any discussion on the motion? Call the question, please.
Burley,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Palenko,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Skrupchak, Adrian,
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Item passes on first reading. Thank you. Next up this evening is agenda item number 2. It's first reading ordinance 23-23, an ordinance of approving an agreement with Public Service Company of Colorado, Excel, and a grant of easement to Excel for the provision of infrastructure for an electric vehicle charging station in the town's public works facility located at 102 School Road. Open public hearing, turn over to staff. Jeff Coble.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time this evening. This ordinance before you tonight is primarily to grant an easement to Xcel Energy across town property at the Public Workshop at 102 School Road. This easement will be used for the installation of primary electrical lines and a transformer that will eventually power all of our fleet charging stations that we will have at Public Works. The agreement is in there, although it does not necessarily need a resolution or anything because it's a no-cost agreement at this time. But the easement does need an ordinance because it is across town property. So with that, I'll take any questions or concerns if you have any.
Questions? Open this particular agenda item up for public comment. We should make public comment. Seeing none in chambers and none online, close public comment. Council discussion.
How many, so this transformer will power how many?
It will power, can power up to 10 2-port level 2 chargers, and it will also power 1 2-port DC fast charger. So a total of 22 ports, if you will, to charge town vehicles.
And this is just the easement. This isn't the actual project.
No, this is just the easement and the infrastructure to get on
Yep.
our property.
And then ultimately with that line upgrade or line extension or whatever they call it, are they paying for it through their EVSI program?
Yes.
Cool.
And then basically it'll be a 10-year, I believe it's a 10-year timeframe in the agreement where at the end of 10 years, the town will then take ownership of the primary lines and the transformer, and the easement goes away.
Seems like a good deal.
Yeah, basically, if we were to pay for this project, you're probably looking at $250,000. That's my best guess on that side of things, so.
I agree.
We have an obligation to put a certain number of vehicles onto these
Minimum
chargers
of 4 chargers is our obligation to put in.
to use or just to
To
put them in?
use, yeah, you have to, once you put them in, you have to use them. Yeah. They're gonna want to see a draw on
It's,
that.
and we've already budgeted for at least 4 vehicles to plug into, right?
We budgeted for, for replacement. Basically, our replacement cycle over the next few years is calling for electric vehicles, electric pickup trucks, all of it. So plug-in hybrids, whatever, basically, whatever we can get our hands on really is what we're going after. That will, of course, work for the town, but right now, as some of you know, it's rather difficult to get a hold of we've got one electric pickup truck for the PRA that we ordered last year, and we might get it in October. And that's just one.
And that's sort of where I just wanted to make sure we're not going to violate the agreement with them, whether it's supply chain or.
Well,
anything else.
we will have a couple of vehicles by the time this goes in, hopefully, that we can plug in and charge. And, and we're also looking at replacing some of the town hall fleet with electric vehicles. Some of the police vehicles may end up being plug-in hybrids, but it's just all a matter of what we can get our hands on.
Jeff, what's the location on property exactly?
Okay, so for the chargers,
Yeah,
they're in.
for the plan.
If you can visualize the south end of the building, the dirt parking lot on the south end, that's where they're gonna go. That's really the only place they can go because we are unfortunately encumbered by that 75-foot wide power line easement that goes across our property, and we cannot build anything permanent within that easement. And I had that easement surveyed, and surprisingly enough, the building corner is just 2 feet off that easement. So we
So
squeaked
even
that
though
one
it's
in.
an easement for Excel, and now we're granting them another easement. We couldn't put their easement on their easement.
No, because it's a completely separate easement.
Okay.
That easement that we have across our property is for that transmission main.
Uh-huh.
And that was set up back when They built the reservoir and they had to reroute that transmission main.
My question for the location was just, is there an opportunity to flex this for public use? But where you're telling me,
This agreement does not allow these to be used for public.
okay, so
use.
this agreement is for fleet.
Fleet agreement only. Yep.
All right. Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve agenda item number two, 2323. It's been moved to approve by Pro Tem Inc. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Holenko. Any discussion, motion? Call a question, please.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley, Held,
Yes.
Palinka, Incan,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Skripchak, Adrian.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also passes on first reading. Next up is agenda item number 3, first reading. Ordinance 23-25, an ordinance approving a service agreement with and a grant of easement to Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC, each in connection with the provision of wiring for cable television and internet service at the Granite Park Housing Project. To open up the public hearing, turn over to staff and see Addison joining us online.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is pretty straightforward. This is just ensuring that all residents and potential residents for 619/Granite Park will be able to get in cable, bundle, do whatever they got to do, but just ensure that they have some form of connectivity once they move in. So with that, definitely take questions if there are any, or however we want to proceed.
Questions for Addison? No questions. I'll open up for public comment. Seeing no public comment in chambers or online, I'll close public comment. Back to council.
I just have a question how this kind of stuff works on new construction. So does this mean that Comcast is going to be the only option for those guys, or is this just their like conduit and then other people get to go in there? Like, is this the only option for them?
So this is the only option for residents right now. The design team, and our owners reps, we reached out to several other providers. When it comes to another provider locally, they could provide fiber service, but the town needs to have a fiber plan in place to make that a feasible option. So that is not viable right now. So in the future, one of the benefits, if I can backtrack for a second, one of the benefits of this agreement, and thanks Thad with all of his input and assistance on this, it's non-exclusive. So we, the owner, we'll be joint owners with CDOT on this. We have the ability to come in and bring somebody else in without voiding this agreement. It's just non-exclusive. So we have that ability to do so in the future, but from day one, to get people connected, and for people to apply for service, this was kind of our only option, especially with where we were at in the project.
Perfect. Thank you. You open it up, public comment.
I did.
Okay, and with that, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve on first reading 2325.
Been moved to approve by Councilmember Burley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Skripchak. Adrian, any discussion on the motion? Call the question, please.
Skripchak, Adrian.
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Palinka,
Yes.
Incan,
Yes.
Mortensen.
Yes. This also passes on first reading. Thank you very much, Addison. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up this evening is an executive session.
I was like, where is that?
Mr. Mayor, I move to go into executive session pertinent to Colorado Revised Statute (CRS) section 24-6
402 (4) concerning the potential purchase of certain real property by the town and the potential sale of other real property owned by the town and purchased pursuant to, easy to say,